Hello, Buckeye fans. This is the Bucknuts staff, Dave Biddle, Patrick Murphy, Steve Helwagen. We are live here from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center after Ryan Day and Jim Knowles just spoke ahead of what could be a decent game this weekend, fellas.
Yes, flagship game in college football for the entire season, it seems like.
Yeah, finally a big one here. Not to take anything away from Indiana, Youngstown State, or Western Kentucky. Dave, we'll start with Ryan Day's comments. Obviously, he focuses more on the offensive side of the ball. This is going to be the biggest challenge for Kyle McCord going into a hostile environment. He did get to play on the road against Indiana, but a little bit different atmosphere, I imagine. Ryan seemed to be pretty confident that Kyle would handle it. He's talked about his poise a lot. What do you make of Kyle heading into this game? First time.
Yeah, I'm Patrick. I'm just curious to see how he handles it. I mean, primetime game, all eyes on him. Gets a good defense on the road. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how Kyle handles this mentally. Obviously, how he handles it, physically with everything he does as a quarterback, but how is he going to handle this mentally? So I feel like if he's calm and he's not, even when something goes wrong, if he doesn't get rattled, I think Ohio State's going to be in very good hands in this game. But he needs to prove it first. It's going to be really, as we all know, his first real test. But yeah, I agree with you. Coach Day does seem to have some quiet confidence. Coach Day was very serious today, as you might imagine, with it being Notre Dame week. But yeah, I got the same vibe, Patrick, that Coach Day seems quietly confident in Kyle McCord.
Yeah, and it's not just Kyle. I mean, this offensive line hasn't faced anything like this. Indiana, they were able to make calls no problem. It was about 50-50 split. They've obviously played 2 games at home. I think it's looked better each week, but how do you think this Notre Dame atmosphere and this defense will challenge the guys up front?
Yeah, it's going to be a severe challenge, I think, for these guys to go on the road in a hostile environment. 80,000 people, I would think probably about 65,000 of them will be Notre Dame fans. Maybe 10,000 Ohio State fans will weasel their way in there somehow. The tickets are over $400 a piece right now. That's the get-in price for this game, which is about a high for a regular season game as any that I can recall at Ohio State or really anywhere in recent memory. So the atmosphere should be electric, and I think you have to be a little bit concerned about how an offensive line that's only played together for 3 games is going to handle this. Yes, they played much, much better this past week against Western Kentucky, but this is a huge step up in terms of competition to go against Notre Dame. Ohio State scored 21 points against Notre Dame last year, and that was with C.J. Stroud. So, you put Kyle McCord in there, and you hope, above all hope, I think that the best way to go on the road and quiet the crowd is to establish the run and sustain drives and hold the ball for 3, 4, 5 minutes and move it 80 yards, and that'll shut them up real quick. So they got to come out of the gate popping, and I think that they've got to come out of the gate executing, and it's as much mental to me as it is physical.
Dave, Steve mentioned the run game. Obviously important anytime you go on the road, anytime you play, but we've seen these past couple weeks, well, really last week, it seemed like Mayan was relegated to kind of that third back. Ryan Day was asked about this. He said, they're all in the mix. They're all going to play. What's your read on this? Obviously, Travion's the starter. Chip has been in second every game. But, what do you think they will use in terms of running backs this week? And kind of what is the breakdown in terms of carries?
Yeah, even though Coach Day stopped short of saying Chip is the number 2, I do feel like he's got a little bit of an edge over Mayan as the number 2 back. But as Coach said, all 3 of those guys are going to play. Mayan has his role, short yardage, goal line. He's so good at just, if it's second and goal from the 3, I want that ball in number 3's hands. He just has a knack for getting that ball in the end zone. So he has a role on this team. And you don't know when a running back's going to get banged up. Hopefully they don't go into a situation like they had last year where I've never seen an Ohio State team that decimated at running back because there's never been one. So right now all the guys are healthy. They're so healthy that I think they're trying to redshirt Dallin Hayden. I'm not sure about that. That's just my guess. I know they wanted to redshirt him last year, and then they needed him to play. But yeah, I feel like Travion, now he still needs to prove it going forward, but right now he's certainly locked in as the number 1 back, and then I think Chip has a slight edge over Mayan. Great depth there. I've been impressed with Chip. It's nice that he's got that, that versatile role. He can be your tailback. He also can be this offset fullback as well. I think they've mixed that in there. G. Scott also coming in there doing a good job, kind of as an offset fullback, as kind of like what Mitch Rossi did last year, as well as doing what he's doing at tight end. But yeah, it's Travion. It is then I think Chip, and then Mayan, and then we'll see what happens. It was good to see Evan Pryor get out there, but they clearly have their top 3 backs.
Yeah, and Travion, they're getting him the ball in space, throwing screen passes and whatnot, which is what, frankly, he's best at is when he has room to run. So I'm interested to see what we haven't seen yet from this offense. What stuff Ryan Day has kept under wraps, be that play calls, formations, personnel, all those things I think will certainly be interesting. Steve, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Jim Knowles was asked about the confidence in this team defensively. He said he's always worried. He's never not. I imagine you could talk to him after they win a national championship, and he's still already thinking about what could have been better. From what you've seen from Notre Dame's offense, which is a pretty complete group, how much are they going to challenge this Ohio State defense?
Another severe challenge, I think, for this Ohio State defense.
This is what you want for a top 10 game, right?
Exactly. And I've watched the Navy game and the NC State game, the two probably most competitive games that they played. I know Western Michigan, was it Western or Central? Central Michigan? Central Michigan this past week, 41-17, I believe, was the final score. And, maybe that was a little bit more deceiving as well. But to me, they've got a plethora of weapons. You've got Sam Hartman, who is the active career touchdown pass leader in the country at, I think, 123 now. I think he's thrown 13 already in 4 games at Notre Dame. So he has just been on a tear. And they do a great job protecting him. They've got an outstanding offensive line. Audric Estime is the leading running back, 227 pounds. He carries it between the tackles, so you've got to stop the run first. They're going to try and establish the run on first down with Estime and make it second and short, so it's easier on Hartman and the receivers. He's got 3 or 4 receivers, 3 or 4 tight ends. They've had 17 different players through 4 games who've caught a pass, and 9 of them have touchdown receptions in 4 games. So distribution is thy name. What Ohio State purports to be with all these great playmakers, it usually just ends up being Travion, Marvin Harrison, and Emeka Egbuka carrying most of the weight. They're actually putting it into practice over at Notre Dame with so many different guys getting involved.
It's interesting, I think, because obviously Ohio State has its stars, right? The Notre Dame players aren't names that I think most college football fans outside of Notre Dame fans really know as much, but as Steve points out, it's been productive. How do you handle that as a defense when a number of different guys can do it, as opposed to, okay, we have to focus on Marv, we have to focus on Emeka? How much does that change the defensive game plan when there's just multiple guys that have proven it, at least to some degree?
Yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with their skill position players. I was impressed with their running back when he was a true freshman last year. He's taken a heck of a step. He's a really good running back as a sophomore, and the receivers have been better. Now we'll see how they do against this Ohio State cornerback core, which I love. I mean, Denzel Burke's playing at an All-American level. I think he's going to be a first-round pick. Davis Igbenogsun's playing well. Jordan Hancock's playing well. So this will be Notre Dame's first real test going up against a really good defense. And it's Ohio State's obviously first big test going up against a good offense. But it all starts with Sam Hartman. They have to, if they don't sack him, if they don't, they have to hit him. They have to pressure him. They have to make him uncomfortable. That's what it all starts with, because Notre Dame last year was so pedestrian because they were so bad at quarterback. I mean, look at Tyler Buckner now. They had him one game at Alabama. He played terrible. Now he's already out. So, and he was their starting quarterback last year. Sam Hartman is a massive upgrade. So I think if Ohio State can make him uncomfortable, yeah, he's got weapons around him, including, I don't know if you consider an offensive line a weapon. I do. They've got an excellent offensive line, maybe the best left tackle in college football. Make Hartman uncomfortable, and I think the Buckeyes will win this game.
If I had to look at the matchups, I would say Notre Dame's offense is like, out of a scale of 1 to 10, about an 8.5, maybe a 9. The Ohio State defense is probably an 8, 8.5. So they're going to have to play a great game, the Ohio State defense, to contain the Notre Dame offense. On the flip side, I think the Notre Dame defense is like a 6 or a 7, whereas the Ohio State offense would probably be a 7 or an 8. And so the flip side's true for Notre Dame's defense. They're going to have to play up to contain Ohio State's offense, but Ohio State's offense is not as explosive as Notre Dame's offense has been, in my opinion, so far. I mean, they've got tremendous balance running and throwing. Have shown it all 4 games, whereas Ohio State's offense really only has the one game that they can hang their hat on.
Dave or Steve, you mentioned the ability for it to extend drives, kind of take the crowd out of it. Ohio State showed some of the big playability that we've gotten to know under Ryan Day this past week.
That's good too.
Yeah, I mean,
those spend.
Yeah, what is more important in your mind? Do you need to have, or is it a balance? Do you need to have both?
Well, if you can hit a big play like that, and I've seen it on the road happen before, you can deflate the crowd in an instant. When you hit a 70-yard touchdown or something like that, and take their crowd completely out of the game, particularly when you parlay that with a quick 3 and out, and now you got the ball back, and now the murmuring and the what's going on here starts to bubble up.
I hearken back to the last time they went to Notre Dame Stadium. Opening kickoff, Demetrius Stanley, may he rest in peace, takes the opening kickoff almost all the way back for a touchdown.
Yards.
Into the inside the 10. Pepe Pearson, a few plays later, trots in, touchdown, silence.
Yeah.
Except for the Buckeye fans who were going crazy.
7-0.
OSU
will have its band there, which is kind of interesting.
That is good. Is that they just do once a year, or they're doing twice this year?
They'll
They'll
probably
go to Michigan.
Oh,
So
yeah,
they're doing it twice. They're going twice. But yeah, I mean, Steve's right. I mean, I think back even like I'm going back. I think of like Derek Combs in 2000 at Wisconsin, first play of the game, 80-yard touchdown for the Buckeyes, and it was like silence in Camp Randall. So Steve's right. If they can hit a big play early, that'd be huge. And then to Patrick's point, I don't know if it was a point, but I think it was probably your point. Balance is going to be key. You do need a few long drives. Keep your defense off the field. Wear down Notre Dame's defense, but you've got to make those explosive plays too. In a big game, you have to have both.
You mentioned Estime. He's a guy who didn't do much against Ohio State last year. You mentioned a young player at that point. I think he's second in the country in yards per game right now on the ground. Now Notre Dame's played one more game, so they've had one more opportunity than a lot of teams. But from what I've seen, he looks pretty impressive. What is the challenge when you already know you've got Sam Hartman, these receivers? Now you've got this running back who they're going to continue to pound and try and wear you down. What is the challenge of dealing with what looks to be a pretty complete offense, and you have to worry about everything as opposed to one or two things?
Yeah, it is, again, tremendous challenge. We've said it third time now. The defensive linemen have to get off blocks and have to make contact with Estime at the line of scrimmage, because if they don't, he's going to churn forward and get 6 or 7 yards pretty easily. So he's 227 pounds and he brings the hammer. So primarily just between the tackles, he's not going to take it outside. So once you've confirmed that it's him, you can attack the point of attack and get as many helmets on the football as possible to try and limit him to 1, 2, 3 yards and stack him up. They've got other backs though that they will put in there who complement him very well with the running game. So to me, they're going to try to establish Estime and then go to the play action pass with Sam Hartman. Ohio State's defensive backs have a history. I mean, you think about it. Michigan last year biting on the fakes and getting beaten. Have they put those plays completely to rest with this defense? You're cautiously optimistic. They haven't given up many big plays so far this year. A couple 30-yarders last week, but again, kind of the pressure of that game kind of let off after about the middle of the second quarter. So some things could happen that you wouldn't ordinarily expect. But to me, I want to see this matchup. I want to see if Ohio State's defense is legitimate. I think Notre Dame's offense is legitimate. And at the same time, I mean, for Kyle McCord, this is a game for him on the other side of the ball that, could start his legacy. I mean, Joe Germain back in '96 helped engineer the win at Notre Dame, and that kind of got him off and running. And, maybe the same thing can happen this time around, with Kyle McCord.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how McCord reacts to this, like we talked about at the beginning of the video. I just cannot wait to see how he mentally and physically reacts to this game. It's going to say a lot about the rest of his career at Ohio State, certainly this season. One more thing I want to say about the defense. I just feel like Ohio State's defense, especially going up against Notre Dame's running back, tackling is paramount. I know that's simple, but you cannot have missed tackles in this game. I mean, you can have one or two here and there. That's going to happen in football. You cannot have mounting missed tackles in a game like this. It just cannot happen. I think the coaches will have the defensive players in the right position most of the time. They have to make the tackles. They cannot be missing tackles in a game like this.
Yeah, and I think one thing Ohio State's done, even when they have missed tackles, because I noted, I think it was either last game or 2 games ago while we're watching it live, like there's been a handful, but watching it back, they've gotten to the ball after that. Like the linebacker has gotten there, and then other guys have come or whatnot. So I think that's important too. If you are going to miss one, other guys rallying if you can slow him down. All right, I didn't prep you guys for this.
All right, here we go.
X factor, one player, offense, defense, whatever you think. Who's an X factor in this game?
I will say JT Tuimoloau. I feel like the defense. That's what you're gonna say. Well, because I have confidence that Mike Hall and Tyleek Williams are going to get the job done. I need to see. It doesn't have to be Penn State fourth quarter, but that'd be good. But seriously, JT needs to play like I thought he'd be perhaps an All-American this year as a junior. You know, that third year kind of would come together. Haven't seen it, but he's got the talent, and if he can have an effective game, that will be huge for this defense. I'll go with. I will steal my buddy's answer, and I will go with JT.
I got several of them. Chip Trayanum coming off the bench, if he can provide a spark in the running game to kind of give it a little bit of a nudge. You know, Henderson's going to play the first couple of series, and then Chip's going to get in there and try and grind some meat as well. And if he popped one last week, that was a nice run. So if he can do something like that and catch him, that would be great. Xavier Johnson has done nothing on offense to date, but he did have a touchdown against Notre Dame last year. And Georgia to turn the Notre Dame game last year. Carnell Tate had a touchdown just this past week against Western Kentucky, his first. Does he get into the end zone in this game? Does he make a big play to maybe change field position or something in this game? Kind of feels like he's on the cusp and just about ready. The one failing, I think, of Brian Hartline and Jim Knowles is they play their frontline guys way too much. And, Harrison, Yuka, and Fleming, there's a diminishing return when they're out there every down. And I would like to see some of those other guys sprinkled in there. And the same thing with Knowles, with Eichenberg and Chambers, although this isn't the week to do it. For C.J. Hicks to only play 11 plays in a game they won by 53 points was criminal, but
trying to match his number, I guess.
Yeah, what can I say? But get your best players on the field, I guess. But those are the ones on defense. I like Tuimoloau, and who else would I think about?
Usual suspects are going to ball out. Eichenberg's going to ball out in this game.
Your best players got to play the best
Burke's
football
going to ball out.
in the biggest games.
Igbinosin, Hancock, Styles is going to have a big role in this game.
This is where all Americans are identified. Denzel Burke, I'm looking at you, so there you go.
You mentioned Chip Trayanum. I'm curious, when he's in that fullback role, I wonder if they've got something there.
Yeah, they didn't use it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but can you hand it to him? Can you throw it to him? Maybe you play fake.
He's an eligible receiver.
Right. I wonder if there's something that hasn't been shown.
I don't need Dean Blandino to tell me that.
Right. I will go with Cade Stover. I think you guys listed a bunch of guys.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But if everyone else is covered, he's been reliable in two of the three games. So
good.
A big play. You mentioned some of the big plays. If he can just get like a 40-yard catch like he had last week,
change field position.
Exactly. I think he can be big. All right. Well, this is only the beginning of this week. We're gonna have plenty more. You've already got Ryan Day's video up on Bucknuts. Dave will have a story here on some of the stuff Jim Knowles talked about shortly. So we'll have plenty more. If you missed any of this, we'll post it on the site as well. Anything else, guys, before we sign off?
Nope, I think we covered it.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. We're here at the WAC for Bucknuts Instant Reaction, I think is what we're calling it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later this week.